Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Master Gardeners of Ottawa-Carleton's Trowel Talk Live. I am absolutely delighted to introduce Nancy McDonald. And Nancy started growing microgreens as a winter activity in 2019. She's still trying new seeds and has so far been delighted with the addition of this vegetable confetti when preparing meals. So she hopes that this presentation will interest you in growing microgreens. And I'd like to remind everybody to please insert your questions into the chat. So without further ado, take it away, Nancy.
Well, welcome and thank you for joining us again today. This is our 24th Trowel Talk Live. We're getting to be old hands at this. So where did the idea of microgreens come from? Well, it originated about 20 years ago. There was a Chicago chef, Charlie Trotter, and he was looking for a new product, something he could serve his customers that would be sort of avant-garde, something to turn their heads, because Meslam mix was getting a little bit of an old. So microgreens came, and sometimes it's these immature vegetable greens are called vegetable confetti, which I think is kind of apt. And now, of course, microgreens are grown commercially and by many people in their homes. So maybe you will consider if you're not already. So why grow microgreens? Well, it is fun. It is easy. And if you are someone that started seeds and you know what that work is like in the spring when you start your seeds, then you have to thin them and you put them into, maybe pot them up. And then when you think of putting them outside, you have to harden them off. There's quite a process, right, to getting our seeds out and our plants out into the garden. But with microgreens, it's very easy. It's very quick. Your turnaround harvest is 10 to 14 days on average. You don't have to thin them. They're growing to that small little stage. You want them all. So it really is easy. I grow them mainly in the winter, though I have grown some in the summer, but you could grow them year round for sure. And certainly it costs pennies when you do it at home as opposed to buying it per pound at a store. Great gardening project with young children because you know if they grow it, they're probably going to eat it. So great way to introduce new taste to them. Very tasty. I really love these little bites of taste to my dishes in the kitchen. I enjoy being in my kitchen. And I'm going to be telling you a little bit about how nutritious they are as well. So what are they actually? Well, they are, what's the difference like between sprouts and microgreens? Well, with sprouts, they're usually just the germinated seed with the root actually. So just the emerging roots. So if you buy bean sprouts in the store, you certainly know what a sprout looks like. And usually sprouts are grown, of course, in water. Microgreens I grow in soil, in usually a seed starting mix or a potting mix of some sort. And I harvest them when they're 2 to 4 inches in height. And what we are actually eating with these is we get the stem, we get the cotyledons, which you can see in the picture here, and we get at least the first 2 true leaves. So the cotyledons are what we call the seed leaves. And I want you just to remember that. And they're the leaves that are really, some people call them the embryonic leaves because they have come truly from the seed. And baby greens will be a little bit more mature. You'll probably grow them in about 21 to 40 days, and they're going to be 4 to 6 inches in height. And we certainly know baby lettuce and things like that from our grocery store. So I said nutritious, and they definitely are. There was a study done at the University of Maryland College of Agricultural and Natural Resources. And they looked at 25 different microgreens. And they looked particularly for vitamin C, the ascorbic acid. They looked for the carotenoids, like the provitamin A and the beta carotenes, lutein. vitamin E, vitamin K, and really interesting in that they found 4 to 40 times more nutrients in microgreens than on a mature plant. And they found the highest concentration of nutrients in those cotyledons or seed leaves. So very important to make sure we eat those as well. So just wonderful, to think that you can get good nutrition from such a small little vegetable. So not difficult, as I said, if you grow seeds, you're used to doing this, very easy. You can use recycled food containers. It's not like you need a whole lot of equipment to do this. Seed starting mix is what I use. When I didn't have it during COVID and I had some potting mix, that's what I used. The seeds can be salad greens, leafy vegetables, herbs, edible flowers. Of course, not every vegetable is suitable to be a microgreen. We're not going to grow tomatoes, right? Because, we're thinking of the nightshade family. We don't eat the leaves and the stems of tomatoes. So, pretty well you're safe if you know this is a garden vegetable that I eat the leaves and the stem and so forth. Sunny windowsill or grow lights is what I use. So the containers, like I said, you can use recycled plastic food trays. And if you are recycling a container, make sure you make some holes in it for good drainage. As I'm reusing containers, I also clean them with a mild solution of bleach between use, probably a couple of tablespoons of bleach in my sink of water. I put flat sardine cans here, not because I'm telling you to grow microgreens in it, but just how shallow that container is. So that gives you an eye to how little of the mix that you need to grow them in. So I never use more than an inch, probably. If I'm using a larger seed like peas or so forth, it might be about a little over an inch that I'm using. You can use seed starting trays, of course. One author I was reading said she likes hers to look pretty, so she has them in bonsai bowls and even bamboo steam baskets, so many choices. So this is arugula growing in a recycled takeout container, and there's a lot of benefits to a container like this. I made the holes. When I planted my seeds, I could use the dome part to keep the humidity in. Once it had germinated, I could take the cover off and use it as the tray to water from below. So very, very good. So you might be asking, well, I don't have grow lights. Can I still grow microgreens? And yes, there are some that really will grow fine in lower light situations, like lettuce, arugula, mustard, and any of the Asian greens. So yes, you certainly can. I grow in a west-facing window, so fairly good light there. And I know people have great success, of course, in south-facing windows as well. You can purchase seeds for sprouts or microgreens, and any of the big companies that have catalogs, you will see a whole section of microgreen seeds for you. The big thing is microgreen seeds should be untreated. You don't want to be taking and eating an immature vegetable that might have been treated with a pesticide or a fungicide or so forth. And all packages would be marked if there was any additions in them. So the important thing is untreated seeds. There was an interesting question on West Coast Seeds blog where a person had asked that they wanted to buy some, they wanted to purchase some microgreen seeds and they were out of stock, and they wondered if they could use the regular garden seeds. And the answer was, well, yes, most often they are the same seeds, but if they package them differently to give different instructions. So, you can feel quite comfortable if it's an untreated seed that you grow in your garden, that you can use it in microgreens. And that's what I find. I find it's a great way to use up some of my leftover seeds in this way. Having said that, I'm still going to be ordering some seeds for microgreens because I would like to try red amaranth. I still haven't tried sunflower seeds, which everyone says is wonderful. But I will be ordering some seeds to grow those. So very simple. You fill your shallow container with your moist seed starting mix. And there are, if you go online and look, you will see that you can purchase hemp mats. You can purchase coconut core mats, pumice stones. You're going to see a variety of growing mediums. It was interesting. I was reading a blog from the garden professors, and the person that wrote it had a hemp mat. And he said when it was moist, it smelled like smelly gym socks in a locker full of weed. It didn't entice me to want to try that. So keep it as simple, but you will find that there's certainly other mediums you can use. And I don't reuse my seed starting mix, and that's why it's nice. You can add it to the compost. Sow your seeds evenly and quite densely. You're not thinning, you're not growing them to maturity, so you can get a lot in a small area. And of course, cover it first after you've planted to keep it dark and increase the humidity. And then uncover once it's germinated, move it to that sunny window or under grow lights, water from the bottom, and you're going to cut at the soil line with scissors when it's 2 to 4 inches in height. So it is pretty simple and enjoy. You can store them for a period of time in the fridge, maybe 2 or 3 days. I wouldn't wash them. I put them in a bag, maybe with a paper towel or a cotton towel to absorb any moisture. But I usually sort of know that my microgreens are going to be ready to harvest, and I sort of think about how I'm going to use them quickly. So these are some pea microgreens, and really peas and sunflowers we would probably call more shoots because they are taller. And I've let it certainly grow beyond the first 2 true leaves. And they're just so delicious. So what I did with these is when I harvested them, I had braised some patty pan squash and zucchini, Welsh onion and garlic from my garden. And then I just took the pan off the heat, added in my pea shoots, and it just wilted with that, and just put some walnuts over top. So a great, easy side dish. And it is very wonderful to have microgreens on hand because they just add a little extra something, I think, to your dining. Kale, I certainly like as microgreens. I certainly like it as baby kale. And so it's one I grow quite often as well. I find I like to chop it and just put it over some sort of a roasted soup that I may have, like in this picture. So it is certainly something that I do enjoy. I love arugula. So this is one I grow. I have quite a few seed packages. I always have it going. And I just love that punch of flavor with it. And often what I use with my arugula for is just out of the oven, like a flatbread with maybe my own pesto and some of my vegetables. And it just gives that extra flavor enhancer to it. Some people might want to mix different greens together. And if you were going to do that and growing them, you would have to think that they would have similar germination rates. The thing about it is some of the seed companies will sell you mixes so that they will germinate about the same time, and you'll get a variety of microgreens all at the same time. So I don't know if any of you watch Five and Dine on CTV Ottawa at 5 o'clock. It's sort of come into its own as they feature local restaurants during COVID, so that we would, be making sure we were ordering from, etc. And I just love watching Matt Scooby because he's a real foodie and enjoys the dishes that the restaurants show him. So a few weeks ago, there was a restaurant that showed on the side, they had corn microgreens. And I thought, well, I'm giving this talk, maybe I should try corn microgreens because I hadn't thought of them. And with corn, as with peas, you would need to soak your seed the night before. And then I decided to use one of those clam shells that, getting some of the fruit in, and because it's going to be about 4 inches tall. So I started the seeds then in the clam shell. I have a tea towel over it because corn microgreens, when you grow them, you want to eliminate any light. And I think some light got through my tea towel. The next time I will put a bucket or something over it. And the reason you want to keep out the light is you want to keep them sort of a pale yellow. You don't want the chlorophyll because the chlorophyll will make it taste more maybe like the corn husk. It's not going to be as sweet. So my ended up being sort of a yellow green color here, but it was still very, very sweet. And I just added it to what I had to have a salad. And the thing about corn microgreens is the turnaround time was about 8 days. So it was really fast. And the other thing for doing something like this with children is you can actually use some of the popcorn kernels to soak them and use them as microgreens. So just very interesting. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to try it with the bucket so I get that pale yellow color, but it was sweet, and that's it. You do want a super sweet type of corn. So suggestions for how to use microgreens. Well, you've seen some of them here. I've talked about toppings for salads and soups. Some people add them to smoothies for that extra nutritious punch. Just to garnish a dish, you put that finishing touch on a plate whenever we can freely have friends to eat and so forth. They'll think you're quite amazing. Topping pizza or flatbread. In omelets or frittatas, I've certainly done it in frittatas. Sandwich, burger, or taco topping. I have a friend of mine who grows, always has broccoli microgreens on the go because she just loves adding them to her sandwich. So these are some suggestions. There's many, when you go online, microgreens you can actually grow. So I'll be ready to take some questions, and this was cilantro microgreens in this dish.
So Nancy, we have quite a few questions and comments. The first one from Marin says, vegetable confetti. What a wonderful phrase and opening comment. It pulls one into the subject. And Claudia says, I guess I can use sprouting trays.
I know that there are like sprouting trays, she means to put her soil in or whatever. Yes, you certainly can. And there are some water systems online. I just felt I don't want any more equipment if I don't really need it. And if I can grow them with what I have, my seed starting trays or the trays that go with my grow light system. And I thought it was fun to try the recycled ones and just how useful those domed ones are. So, that's just have fun with it.
And Linda says she just had some coriander microgreens on a salad. Loved it. Mm-hmm. Do you have to dig up the roots and start again after using the microgreens?
I actually just take all that soil, and you'll find that the roots come right through, because you're only having about that inch of seed starting mix in. The roots will come right through your tray or your holes or whatever. And I just pull it up after I cut it. It almost comes up like a mat, and you can compost it. I couldn't find any recommendations anywheres to reuse them. It just isn't really worth it because they're so close together, so densely planted that there's just so many roots in that little base. Only one place I found that maybe you could get regrowth from pea shoots, but I haven't tried to regrow any, but the others you wouldn't get a regrowth.
Okay. And Kimberly ask, what is the optimum room temperature for growing the greens, especially arugula? I'm thinking of using my basement with grow lights or other warmer rooms throughout our house.
Yeah, you should be, like with your grow lights, hopefully that generates enough heat. I mean, you're not going to have them on, you're going to have them probably raised up. You're not going to have them on the concrete in the basement or anything like that. So if you're raised up, I think you should get enough heat with that. I know with my grow light system, I am going to be moving it to the basement this year. And I don't foresee any problem with that. Lots of people have their grow lights in their basements.
Okay. And finally, Claudia says, sounds like sushi party platter trays would work too.
Yes, absolutely. You know, just make the drainage holes and yeah, you really, I just think it's fun. You know, I think it's great when we're citizens, we can recycle as much as we can because you can use some of those takeout trays over and over again.
Yeah. One more question from Sarah. How about a basement that is only 10 degrees Celsius in the winter?
Oh, that sounds pretty cool for growing anything. I don't know. I mean, I don't use a heat mat or anything on it. And you think it's that cold, 10 degrees. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer. I'd have to look a little bit up on that. I mean, a lot of your greens are cold hardy. When you think of it, they're the ones that we can plant in the spring and leave out. And they're not the ones that I take in if, you know, we're going to get, it's going to go down to 5 degrees or something. I don't worry about my peas or some of my leafy greens and that. So, you know, it's worth a try, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Rebecca, our moderator, says it would depend on the type of seed, but lettuce and many greens that are cool season would be okay at this temperature.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Anything that's cold hardy that you can put out as soon as you can break the surface of the soil, it's not always warm out there, then I think you would be good to go.
Yeah. So that's all for the questions today, but I would like to remind everyone, if you're thinking of questions even after this session, you can always post your question on the helpline, and the email address is mentioned in the meeting reminder that you received about this meeting. So feel free to do this, and questions would possibly be sent to Nancy anyway.
And thank you. Thank you so much to Nancy for a fabulous presentation and to Claire for moderating our questions. Now, I'd like to add my thanks, Nancy, because this is something I'm looking at. In past years, I've gone to the Lansdowne Winter Market and paid up to $5 for a tiny little container of microgreens just to get that fresh season taste in the middle of the winter. So great idea for starting your own. Thanks, everyone, and happy growing.